Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Drive with myself, Stefan. We've come into this area this morning because VM and I are really on a bit of a mission to try and find hyena. That hyena den that we have been puzzling over for the last couple of days is either somewhere behind Gallagher Camp or it's here, somewhere here. We came through here and immediately we went to go and have a look at an old den site, but there's no action around that den site whatsoever. No fresh tracks, no bones, no anything that's telling me there's any activity there. But here, there's always hyena tracks here, and we're hearing vocalizations coming from this particular area. We've been hearing it for the last week or so, which is sort of like my option B, if I were to say there's such a thing. We've got a game path that comes through here that we saw the tracks of two hyena on. So I think that hyena den is either here somewhere in one of these big termite mounds here, or it's through this drainage line and in this thick block over here. Not too many termite mounds. I was watching for some decent termite mounds yesterday when we were driving through here with those Birmingham boys. There's no tracks of those hyena that come out on this road at all, which is... Oh, hang on, wait. Looks like they're on this road. I'll see when we can pull off and have a look at the tracks here. So yeah, the tracks come out on this road, which is okay. So that means that the two hyena that I was tracking from the top over there have come out on this particular road, and we're just using the game path to carry on going east from here. Not too much of a problem. It's all just fitting these puzzles together in my head. There's a big water buck in front of us. Nice to see this time of the morning. Nice big guy as well. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer to him and have a look. Give us a chance to switch the car off and have a listen. So far, VM and myself have tracked a big male leopard this morning. He unfortunately crossed south. But it's nice to know that a large male leopard was on Juma last night. And if it is Tingana, keeping himself nice and busy. Now while VM has a look at this waterbuck going away, I'm just checking my earpiece has finally given up the ghost, which is okay. I've been anticipating it for a while, and I have a spare, so just give me a second to just put in my spare earpiece while you're having a look at this massive male waterbuck. I'll do that. Obliging us nicely by standing still. Have a look at those horns. They've got a reputation for being very aggressive, these waterbuck. Taking on people and lions, I've heard, and leopard in actual fact. Another day, I heard this report coming from a reserve near Hoedspruit that said that some wild dog were trying to catch a nyala, a kudu, sorry, a female kudu, and they caught the kudu and a waterbuck bull ran in and tried to stab one of the wild dogs, ended up spearing the kudu to death, unfortunately, with the wild dogs jumping around, and then the waterbuck ended up chasing away the wild dog, leaving the kudu lying there. I mean, you ever heard of something more bizarre? Let's go forward a little bit and see if we can see him from the front. Once again jacked in and can communicate with Tara and Jess in final control. Wow, he is a magnificent bull. Really wide horns. Apparently the world record waterbuck was gathered from this area. I've seen bigger waterbuck in other parts of the Kruger, most notably around Satara. But for those of you who can take a screenshot, please do. That is a magnificent specimen of a waterbuck, and you can share it on Twitter at the hashtag Safari Live. I'm sure everyone would like to see it or have access to it. Really is a big guy. Not going to find many waterbuck bigger than him. That white ring on his rump, diagnostic. As well as his size and his shaggy coat. You just see how wide those horns are there in that shot. That is just incredible. Males will obviously use those horns to wrestle and joust with one another. The ridges on the horns helping to stop the horns from sliding past one another and inflicting injury when they're just wrestling. Obviously a determined push from either partner or either participant would cause the horns to slip past one another and cause some injury. And it's not uncommon to see waterbuck with deep holes, puncture marks in their shoulders and their necks from these jousting competitions from time to time. Nice. Alrighty, let's carry on with our day. We want to go and find out as well. We got sidetracked by a male leopard. Now we've been sidetracked by thinking about where these hyena are and following those hyena tracks. But the original mission this morning, before we got all these distractions, was for us to come and see what happened to those Birmingham boys from last night. It sounds like they were roaring within earshot of the Juma Cam at about 12 o'clock. So thank you for those updates. Also noticing how many hippo middens are around at the moment. Hippo don't have any glands that they use to mark territory with. What they do is they use their dung and I think it was a mongoose. Yeah, good spot there, David. Yeah. VM is learning how to identify animals from their tracks and their signs, and he just shouted out that there was some leopard dung on the floor, but on closer inspection it was white-tailed mongoose, or the white-tailed mongoose track next to it. Obliterated, unfortunately, by me driving past it before I stopped. Bumpy road. Now, talking about cats, hyenas, mongoose, and the lion and leopard interaction we've seen. Virginia has asked a question. Do hyenas fight for territory similar to how lions do? Clans vying over an area? And the answer to that is absolutely, and just as vicious as what lions would be. Obviously they don't have the teeth and the really do have a puncture point of view, but just that crushing force of their bite can do and does do mortal injury to combatants. Clans are constantly shifting their home ranges around as they have pressure from other clans and defending their core territories with whatever they can muster. So absolutely there's turf war going on, for lack of a better description, pretty much constantly between everything from hyena to lion, from lion to leopard, even amongst things like buffalo and not so much elephant herds, but buffalo, rhino, bulls do similar things with one another. And it's all just to secure enough resources so that they can get their genes into the gene pool, to have enough to eat, to have enough to drink. Sun has risen this morning bright and yellow. I think it's going to be one of those fantastic days. It's a bit chilly now at the moment, I must say. Myself and Viam are sitting over here, not driving too fast. We are deliberately driving at a snail's pace. The wind, as we're busy driving, gets a little bit frosty on the fingers. As you can see, they're battling to open here this morning. It's about as fast as I can do. Alright, now let's carry on with our inspection of Cutline here. See if those Birmingham boys have crossed, and if so, into which property, and see if we can determine a time. I mean, if they're within earshot of the Juma camera, it says quite a lot. It means that they may still be quite close. If so, into which property, and see if we can determine a time. I mean, if they're within earshot of the Juma camera, it says quite a lot. It means that they may still be quite close. Watching the hut when we got back, and I happened to see the tree wisteria that Jamie found flowering. And isn't it a beautiful tree, that purple leaves, alongside the knobthorn that we found flowering from the afternoon before, that fuzzy yellow flower on the knobthorn. I went past that tree incidentally last night, holding off on opening up some more yesterday. So, and I hope we're going to be seeing that tree explode into flower in the next couple of days. There's a couple of ready flowers on their stalks waiting to pop open. And this morning on the bus in here, Brian and VM, no not VM, VM was on camera last night. Brian and Andrew and myself were taking bets against when we expect the first rains to arrive. Got a little raptor in the tree over here. Let's see if we can, two of them there. Looks like a gay bar goshawk. Let's have a look. Oh, it's two different types of raptors. It's going to be a bit tough to get an ID on both of these, especially when one flies away like that. There's another one up there, but I think that's a hornbill. Let's just double check. No?
This is the two me and Jamie saw yesterday.
2 gay bar goshawks.
Yeah, if it's just by the cutters.
Yeah, I'm not very good at getting raptors in flight, to be honest. It's a skill that you need to spend considerable time in learning with a book. I need them to be sitting nice and still. I really need them to be sitting nice and still and where I can see the colors on them. Some of my friends can get them on the wing with the banding across the tail and the feather patterns on the wings, but definitely not me. I need to spend some time honing that skill for sure.
Yeah, that tree and that knock form.
Okay.
I think they sat down in that knock form.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Righty. But we got one sitting in the knobthorn in front of us here, sitting on the front. Why I'm not going that much closer is A, I don't want to chase him away, and B, I think from this angle, nah, don't do that. Oh well. One of those things. Back up to our search of the boundary here. Talking about raptors. In a dead tree, I think this is a juvenile battalier. I just want to confirm. Yes, we have a juvenile battalier eagle, juvenile short-tailed eagle. Primarily a scavenging bird, but they have been known to kill snakes. They're actually classified as a snake eagle, which means that they will take snakes on occasion. They use their wings and their unfeathered legs to dispatch the snakes. And that brown coloration that you're seeing there will change to black and white coloration in their adult form. And he or she is just waiting for the thermals of the morning. Amazing that how they can turn their head almost 360, probably around about 300 degrees all the way around. So they use thermals to flying as much as 200 kilometers in one day without flapping their wings even once. Getting flying, they'll flap their wings. Using air currents and using thermals, they will then glide from thermal patch to thermal patch. Quite close to the ground, probably about double the height, sometimes 3 times the height of the tree that they're sitting on at the moment. Very close to the ground, seeing what is lying on the ground, and then landing in trees close by to inspect lions lying on kills, or leopard lying on kills, cheetah lying on kills, wild dog lying on kills. Quite often one of the very first birds that you see around a kill, in actual fact. Vultures look at battaliers before they land for clues as to where meat is. Alrighty, let's carry on. So I'm expecting these Birmingham boys' tracks to come out on this road. They were heading in this direction last night. The last time that Jamie had audio or saw of them was heading straight towards this cut line. But you never do know, you know, we're expecting, or I'm expecting at least, that they set up their territory on Jumo. And they might just use the boundary roads or just off of the boundaries as the fringe of that, but they're always going to come back in, you know, once they've managed to push out those lines, those battle lines, for lack of a better description. Now junctions are always a good place to look for lion tracks. Lion quite enjoy walking on game paths. They're nice and quiet, and a road is no more to a lion than just a very big game path going from place to place. But very often the first roads that were placed in this area were placed on game paths, because that's where the most concentration of game was. So to them, a road is just another big game path, which is good for us, makes it a little bit easier to see lion tracks. Leopard don't often use paths. Some leopard do, some leopard don't. For instance, Karula really dislikes walking on roads. She'll cross over roads, walk on them a little bit, and cross off again. She hardly ever walks on a road or a game path. Probably just years of learning that she is harassed less by cars when she doesn't walk on roads.
Wow, that's water.
Liam shouting out tracks again. Good, getting himself prepared for hopefully some tracker evaluations later on in the year or into the first part of next year. Oh, you know, almost drove in my eagerness to look for lion tracks. Almost drove straight past an elephant. Where's the rest of your family, boy? One young male elephant all on his own. You probably find he's a straggler, that the rest of the herd is here somewhere. You know, very similar to teenage boys that loop forward and back of their parents in a shopping mall. Young bull elephants like this will quite often be out in front or left behind a herd that is busy feeding off into the bush. They're always in contact with that herd. And by contact I mean they can always hear where the rest of the herd is. They contact one another using ultra low frequency sound waves, sound that we very often can't hear. It's below our audible range. And he's busy enjoying that stick immensely. Watch carefully how that stick turns. It's twisting around. The elephant's chewing off the bark of that tree, using his molars to push it and twist it, and then helping his trunk. You'll watch it come out the other side, and when he gets to those branches, he'll spit it out, peeled off of bark. See it coming out the other side, and you'd wonder to yourself, what possible nutrition could an elephant get from shaving millimeters worth of bark from sticks? You know, I've asked myself the question time and time again. Apart from just minerals and sugars and a bit of water, they're not really getting much bulk feed going. I think this time of year they just keep healthy rather than keep full. See, he's already finished that stick. I don't know why he wants to pick it up. Obviously missed a morsel or two of bark. But you'll see how effective they are of rolling those those branches of rolling those branches through their mouth and getting off that bark. It's just incredible. There you go, spits it out. Let's see if he picks it up again or picks up another stick. I can hear more elephant. Finally, I can hear more elephants in front of us. So we found the rest of his herd. I mean, for me to hear it, they're not too far away. Let's see what he does with that stick now, whether he breaks that stick off. Putting it in his mouth. Obviously just at an awkward angle, too awkward for him to use his tongue. And he broke it off, can you believe it? He actually bit that thick stick off. Wow. Once again, just passing it in the one side of his mouth and rolling it through his molars and spitting it out the other side. Playing with that stick. But they need to eat. I mean, a little guy like this will probably need to eat about 200 pounds of food in a day just to stay healthy. But like I said, he's definitely not going to get that by shaving off millimeters of bark. But they spend hours eating this bark. Trace minerals and sugars. He's got that stick in his mouth again. Looking at a young Ellie like this in the bush, and especially after we've had program content like we've had over the last 2 days with these Birmingham boys in the property, obviously elicits some questions and concerns about would he be on the menu of these lion. And Miss Jin in Texas has asked, you know, being on his own, would he actually be a prey item for lion? Yes, he would, absolutely, but this particular elephant is not alone. I am hearing noises off to my left hand side of more elephants, so the rest of the herd is here. He just put that whole tree in his mouth and then bitten it off. Incredible. So absolutely, an elephant of this size would definitely be able to, would definitely fall prey to lion, especially 5 boys like those Birmingham boys. If he was on his own, or they could separate him out from the herd somehow, they definitely would try and take him down. Elephants are not the easiest prey though. They're clever, they are dangerous, they're incredibly strong, and quite often they're surrounded by other elephant, which makes them a target that even lion won't readily consider, especially if the rest of the herd is in attendance like this. What are you doing? You've just broken off a branch there, boy. Now you want to break off another one. Finish what you've got first. Out here in Africa, only man outranks elephant at their ability to transform an environment. Is he using his trunk and his tusk? There we go. Isn't that amazing? And elephant are what we call a keystone species. They are key to the survival of very many species out here. And one of the things that they do is provide a balance for Mother Nature's growing, if I could say. Left unchecked in an area, plants will choke each other out and you wouldn't be able to have gaps through the trees. Unfortunately, the opposite side of that is also true. Elephant numbers that cannot migrate or elephant that are confined into a space will transform an environment so badly that they'll actually turn it into a bit of a wasteland, into a grassland really. Areas like the Chobe River near Kasane have been changed completely from what they were in the past. All because elephants are just doing what elephants do, but without the ability to actually move and migrate, which is what they do naturally. In other words, it being in a closed environment, it seriously, the debate rages on about what impact they're having. Elephant numbers haven't been normal in Africa for the last, since I suppose the Egyptians were trading in ivory many thousands of years ago. Excuse me blowing my nose, I've got for some reason an allergic reaction to something this morning. While we're watching this elephant demolish whatever it is he's eating. Systematically just taking that tree or whatever it is, maybe a root, looks like a branch of a tree, but it could also be a root that he's managed to pick up. And on that topic, Marianne in Boston has asked, on the migration topic, Marianne in Boston has asked, can the elephant move out of Djuma? Absolutely, Marianne. We've got Djuma itself is an open reserve to other reserves in the Sabi Sands. The Sabi Sands is open reserve to other reserves north and south of it. North of us, we've got the Manyeleti, which is open then in turn to the Timbavati, which is open then in turn to the Klesiri. And the Sabi Sands itself is also open to the Kruger National Park. So including the Transfrontier Parks into Mozambique, this particular area comprises about 35,000 square hectare. 3.5 million square hectare, about 35,000 square kilometers. An absolutely enormous area, and more than enough for elephants to live in. Elephant numbers in the Kruger National Park have seemed to be stabilizing out at about 13,000 elephant. Scientists are saying though that for them not to change their environment, the carrying capacity of the park is around about 9,000 elephant. And therein rages the debate, do we translocate elephants into the Mozambique Transfrontier Park? They seem to be inhabiting the Mozambican park at about 10 kilometers per year. So the park's been open for a while into Mozambique, and elephants are slowly starting to move through, and they're ever expanding that park. I mean, it's not going to be very long and we're going to be able to see elephants on the beaches again in Mozambique, with game corridors from the Kruger to Ghana Reserve, from Ghana Reserve into other reserves in Zimbabwe and Botswana. He's putting his effort in this morning. Look at that massive stick that he's carrying around over there. It's a nice picture from VM. Something unusual to what we usually see. And Sherry has just made a comment, no wonder these elephants will wear their teeth down. And for those of you who didn't know what Sherry was talking about, elephant gets 6 sets of molars in their life. And when the last set of molars is worn down and worn out, they lose the ability to chew the food down to a level that their body can, or their digestive process can gain enough nutrition from. And they slowly starve themselves to death, eventually succumbing to sheer exhaustion or some nutritional related disease or just starvation. So it eventually gets an elephant down. Here he comes with his stick, carrying himself some lunch. Looks like he's going to be moving past us. Get into the shade over here so we can watch him come through. See that head up, ears out display? It's just a young elephant testing the boundaries, knowing that he's bigger than anything else out here. Chewing his nails basically, as you can see. Got his trunk in his mouth. It's just a sign of indecision. Some displacement behavior there with his trunk sniffing at the stump. Just letting us know he's an elephant. Hello, boy. Okay, Jamie. Okay, copy that. That was just me speaking on the radio with Jamie, coordinating our tracking efforts of these Birmingham boys. And I also think that heralds the time that we move on. Let's leave this little guy to his breakfast. We can always come back and find the rest of the herd. The sun is at this bizarre angle today, and it's giving VM some difficulty seeing into his viewfinder and managing all the settings on the camera, which gave you that quite lovely and atypical elephant sighting there, where it looked a little bit blown out on the screen. Now I'm just still driving slow. A, it's still quite cold and my fingers are still getting used to the temperature, and B, I want to make absolutely sure that these lion have not crossed. We've got 2 or 3 vehicles in the area that are busy looking for these lion, and it would seem that they've either decided to jump across the road this morning and not leave any tracks, or they're still in this block somewhere, which they might very well be. They might be lying on a kill somewhere, but we need to find out. They were hungry yesterday, and coming across something last night, I have no doubt that they'll try and hunt it if they could. But what we actually want to do this time is just make sure that they haven't crossed out of our boundary before we go and start tracking them from their last position last night. In that block, it's going to be a difficult thing to do. Quite time consuming, I would imagine. Right, well, myself and VM take this very boring straight road into the distance looking for some tracks. I think it would be a good idea if we link through to Jamie and she can give you an update on what she's been up to for the morning. So we'll catch up with you in a little bit and hopefully with some news about where these Birminghams have gone.
Welcome back, and I've seen my first animal since you left us. We've got quite a sweet little family of Inyala here. There's a male and a female and a youngster, looks like a young female. At that age she'd already be starting to grow horns if it was a male, so it's a little female. And there's the adult female having a look at us. Now, I'm not sure how the Birmingham boys grew wings and flew, but there's about 4 different guides working around this area, and not one of us have picked up on any tracks on any roads. So my assumption, and it is an assumption, is that they are still in that drainage line where I lost them. I'm just going to shift forward so that we can have another view of these Inyala. They're about to go down into the drainage line. Unless the Birmingham boys have underground tunnels, I'm not quite sure how they managed their cunning escape from us all. Sort of shift forward, they're going to move forward as well. I think our Inyala family are going to disappear. Very sweet little lamb. And I've had quite a few possibly pedantic debates as to what you call a baby Inyala. And for those regular viewers, you'll know that Inyala is where the linguistic split happens between calling antelopes cows and bulls and calling them rams and ewes. And anything that is the size of an Inyala bull or larger is referred to as a bull or a cow. So there we have our impressive Inyala bull with his white tipped horns. And anything the size of a Inyala ewe or smaller is called or referred to as a ram and a ewe. But nobody is quite sure what a baby Inyala is called. Probably if it's a female, it's called a lamb. And if it's a male baby, it is called a calf. And what I have noticed is that although Inyala are not territorial in any way, they don't defend areas. They will defend and fight fiercely for female ewes that are in estrus, but beyond that, they don't have territories, but they do definitely have home ranges, because I'm sure I've seen this collection of Inyala before. And it's very, very seldom that Inyala bulls actually come to blows over a female. I've only seen it once or twice in my life. Most of the time what we see is their elaborate dance display, where they puff up all the hair along their back and along their tails, and they present themselves side on to the challenger to make themselves look big and strong. And then they do a very, very slow, fairly hilarious dance around each other in circles. And the one time I did see a very enthusiastic Inyala clash of horns was between 3 large bulls about this size who were fighting over a female that was clearly an estrus, and it was right in the middle of our garden at camp where I was living before this. And the bulls were so busy occupied with fighting each other off. There was a little bull, still with sort of horns about half that size, hiding around the side of the house, peeking out. And as soon as he noticed the bulls were occupied, he snuck around the side of the house and promptly mated with the ewe and estrus while they were busy fighting each other. I was very impressed with his technique. It worked out well for him. And he got the action he wanted, which goes to show sometimes it isn't always about brute strength and your physical abilities. Sometimes it's a battle of wits as well out here. And right now I feel as though the Birmingham boys have won that battle of wits against me. I've also learned an important lesson about what that block looks like away from the road. Definitely quite to off-road is very, very thick. And unfortunately, our little Inyala family have moved into this drainage line as well. And we shall continue our search. Maybe, just maybe, the Birmingham boys changed direction and moved south through this drainage line. So I'm going to keep looking. We saw that magnificent Nyala bull with those white-tipped horns and those what's known as ivory tips, although it's not ivory in any way, but those ivory tips are a sign of his maturity and his age. It puts him at about 4 years older, and I would say with that amount of white tips at the top, you're probably looking at about 6 years old. And you can age the different antelope by their horns. And I know that Billy Joe, welcome to the Sunrise Safari, you wanted to know if you could age waterbuck by their horns, and you can to an extent. They will grow throughout their lives. There's a lion. You're joking. You must be joking.
It's a log that looks like a lion.
No, I'm sure I just saw a tail swish. Let's loop around. Where did you see it? In there? Let's loop around and let's actually go in here. Get it into low gear. Come on, lions, be there. Help us out here. Oh, halt. Found a halt. You're going to be okay here, Brian? Just have a look. Which direction am I looking in? Somewhere in here? Or?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's right here.
Let's just have a listen for a moment. Was it down in the drainage line? Let me just pop my nose over. Don't fear, I will be close to the car. I'm not too worried about them. Ooh. it on this side of the drainage line? Growled at me, which I would have expected at this proximity. Definitely have taken a more elegant route through there. I'm not sure if we might have been tricked by a log. I did see a very lion-shaped log over there. But let's keep looping. Let's see. Might have been, was it lying down? Was your log lying down?
Yeah.
I think we might have been tricked by a lion log.
A very convincing log
A
line.
very convincing log lion. I don't know, it would have growled at me by now. Definitely would have growled at me by now. Yeah, let's just keep looking. Never ever know. And I did suspect they were in a drainage line. It's amazing how when you're really, really looking for an animal, your brain finds it for you. But the one thing I will say is that usually when you react as quickly as Brian did, in the way that he did, that's usually a good sign. We're not going to give up just yet. I'm going to go back to where we saw the lion log and just get our bearings again. And don't worry, Kachino John, I've very much learned my lesson about driving over aardvark holes. I promise you that was a thought that was very, very much at the forefront of my mind last night when I was driving in the dark off-road. It was definitely something that occurred to me. Typically male lions, which is the ones that we're looking for, when you are on foot, they tend to be the biggest wusses. They growl at you and then run away, which makes me wonder. I think I would have heard from them by now. Let's go back along the road, see where it was. But I think we might have been fooled, Brian. I think we might have been fooled. definitely don't see any lions here. I think we might have been tricked. Oh well, we shall continue on with our search. And Astralina was wondering if that was a wise move on my part, getting off the vehicle with the lions possibly very close, especially because, and you are absolutely correct, they respond very differently to the human shape on foot. And in that particular situation, I felt completely secure in the knowledge that the vehicle was very, very close. I had lots of cover to make my approach. And also lions are actually quite kind in their approach to people on foot, although you should never ever take that for granted. But they let you know, they have a very distinct warning zone where all they're going to do is growl at you if you proceed to push them, or if you bump them and surprise them. Then they might give you what is occasionally termed in books as a mock charge, but I definitely wouldn't call it a mock charge. It's a warning charge to let you know that you are far too close. Now in that case, I wasn't aiming in any way to disturb the lions. I just wanted to have a double check before I went bashing through the block on the vehicle. Brian, eagle-eyed Brian, has spotted a little pearl-spotted owlet. That is too sweet. Very, very cool. And they always look quite cross and grumpy. But those little specks along the breast are what gives it away as a pearl-spotted owl. And it's quite common to see them at this time of the day because they are crepuscular. So they are most active in the evenings or late afternoons and then the early mornings. Very, very sweet. I've just heard one calling. I want to see if this little one calls in response. And while we wait, you can see he's in disgust, turned his head right around away from us. And Maggie M was wondering how it is that the various birds of prey do this without tearing any blood vessels or muscles in their neck. And that is one of the adaptations of birds that are absolutely mind-blowing. They're really, really cool. And they just have the blood vessels are just a little bit longer and the muscle systems are a little bit more flexible to allow them that greater range of mobility. And I did once find a dead owl that had died of natural causes. I'm not quite sure what had happened to it, but I had a look at it. And that neck is, although it looks puffy and solid, it's unbelievably thin and fragile feeling. So they really are a miracle of biological engineering. Spotted owls, and that is their incredibly grumpy facial expression. They are hugely entertaining in that way. Here we go. Looking at us with absolute disapproval. I'm just going to, while we have a look at him, looking at us, and hopefully waiting for him to call, I'm just going to find a couple of the little owls in my bird book to show you the various differences between them. Nope, not interested. Could not care less. I'm just having a look close up at him. Starting to wonder if it's not a barred owlet. Now seeing him from this particular angle, he does have a slightly dark chest. And I'm sorry, I think I did make a mistake. This is an African barred owlet, not a pearl-spotted owlet. Should also explain why he completely ignored my whistled call. Very, very sweet, and I'll show you why I made that mistake with my bird book. So this is the little owl that we are looking at here, the African barred owlet. There you can see that slightly darker chest region with the white and the barring. And what I originally thought it was a little pearl-spotted owlet, which is this one here. So you can see very similar looking birds. The difference is that the pearl-spotted owlet has white all the way up to under its face there. It doesn't have that dark color. So although they both have the speckles on the chest, there is a subtle difference there. And the barred owlet is just a little bit bigger, fractionally bigger, than the pearl-spotted owlet. There, if we look at him now, you can see he's not white all the way up to underneath his chin. His or her. Impossible to tell. The barring up at the top of the chest is much darker. So, a little African barred owlet. Very sweet. And he's turned his head away. Not interested in looking at us anymore. Oh, there we go. Okay, time for us to leave him to his daytime rest. I imagine that little owlet probably isn't going to stay as exposed as he is right now. It's just getting to the point where he's probably going to seek a little bit of extra cover, maybe in some of these leadwoods or in the jackalberry trees, which are a bit denser, and provide a little bit more security as he spends the night sleeping, or sorry, not the night, the day sleeping. Now, as I'm sure, as I imagined there were going to be, there have been lots of comments about our tricky log situation where we thought we saw a lion, but we didn't. And Rita has made a comment that we were tricked by a lying log, which I think is very much a good summary of that situation that we had. And Charlie says that never mind, Brian, we enjoyed the owl that you spotted. So well done, Brian, you redeemed yourself. I still wanted, I don't know, maybe it might be worth coming back to check a little bit later, doing a bit of a walk around that area. It honestly would not have surprised me at all if they'd gone in completely the opposite direction to what we expected them to. And it seems as though Steph might have a little bit more of a concrete idea as opposed to a wooden idea as to where those Birmingham boys have disappeared to. And I'm going to send you back across to Steph for now and be back with you a little bit later, quite possibly with a leopard termite mound or maybe an elephant log this time. We'll see. We'll see how we're feeling. We'll be back with you a little bit later.
Welcome back to Vienna. Now we've literally been going at a snail's pace around all these blocks to try and find out where exactly these Birmingham boys managed to leave this this block of bush. And to be honest, it looks like they've jumped over the roads over here, because I can't find a single track of them coming out here. It's quite extraordinary, I must be honest with you, that 5 full-grown male lions seem to have been able to tiptoe around us wherever they're going. Now, we left them last night in the block right where we are now. But now what the trick is to try and figure out which direction they went in, where they are. Male lions are funny things. They'll move in right angles they'll zigzag through an area rather than like a leopard, which just goes in a straight line. But you know, that's part of tracking, is trying to apply your mind to the puzzle that is trying to figure out how these animals think, what conditions were prevalent at the time that helped them make their decision about going in which direction or another. Here's where they were lying yesterday. Anyway, we'll carry on going, see what we can pull out of the bag. It's a good thing to keep your eyes open as well. You're so busy looking for tracks, you drive right past these animals lying in the bush. Jumping on the radio quickly just to find out something. I'm hearing in my ear some reports of some lions that we're seeing in the property to the north of us. I just want to find out if it is these 5 male lions, because that'll save us a lot of effort in this tracking escapade if it is. I stationed with the Gala and just could you confirm if it is 5 male lions? Copy that. At what position, if you don't mind me asking? Sorry. Copy that. And did they bomb us something in Makulu? Alrighty, so at least we got an answer on where these lions are. The 5 Birmingham boys are in Torchwood at the moment. And they killed something small. The gentleman that was giving me the update couldn't tell me what they killed. He says they've already finished it, but their bellies are full, which is a good thing. Let's have a look at these crested francolin. The bird call of this particular bird is my favorite bird call. It's the crested francolin, and the reason why I like it is because as a very young little boy, when my father used to take me out into the bush, quite often it was the only bird call that I could identify, and I have these wonderful memories of me lying snuggled up in my sleeping bag listening to crested francolin calling, and to this day it still generates a sort of warm fuzzy feeling in me listening to these birds calling in the early morning. Alright, so amazingly enough, 5 male lions have managed to literally outwit 3 or 4 trackers this morning, myself included, and tiptoe across every boundary road that we have, or every road that we have, and have gone into Torchwood, just a little bit into Torchwood, actually not too far at all, and have killed something, which is good. They looked a bit hungry, and are now lying fast asleep next to a dam just in Torchwood, just on our eastern boundary, just a little bit into the reserve. Not too much of a problem. We knew they were going to be walking. We knew they were going to be hunting. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I'm coming down to something. It feels like. Please excuse me. Sniffing like crazy, a runny nose, and sneezing. It's who knows, a bit of hay fever. I think it's all the flowering that's coming up in the air at the moment. All the flowers are starting to get going. And we've got from a beautifully patterned bird in those crested francolin to a beautifully patterned giraffe that Jamie's sitting with. And we'll catch up with you in a little bit. See you soon.
Welcome back. Now, I'm not sure, but what do you think, Brian? Is that a log or a tree or a giraffe?
It's a little bit tricky to see.
Close, and he keeps disappearing off behind the trees to feed. Now, I'm not sure why he's so skittish. It is a nice, big, healthy male in really beautiful peak condition. He's quite a young bull, but just approaching his prime. And there you can see those nice, thick ossicones at the top of his head. that tell us it's a male instantly. But he is really, really shy. I've tried to sneak as close as I can, and he keeps disappearing off behind the various pieces of cover that he can find. Good morning, boy. Not interested on being on camera today. A little bit shy, obviously, but camera shy. Come on, big boy. It's okay. Still not interested in coming out into the open, and I'm not going to try and reposition to see him, because he will just go even further into the block and we won't be able to see him at all. We might have to make do with this rather cryptically hidden giraffe for now. I've mentioned before that they're one of my favorite animals to sit and watch, just because of their uncanny ability to stand for ages and just stare at you. He's not interested in us, he's just nibbling away at his breakfast. They really truly are phenomenally structured animals. And for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, if you haven't seen giraffe before, that's an animal with exactly the same numbers of neck vertebrae as we have. So 7 vertebrae in total. They're just obviously absolutely enormous. I've seen giraffe vertebrae that are probably about 60 centimeters in length, which is, what would that be, about 25, just under 25 inches. Really enormous creatures. And so cleverly structured. I know we were talking about the blood vessels of the owls in their necks, or the various raptors, and the fact that they can twist their necks all the way around. And giraffe have got to have a whole different set of systems put in place in terms of valves. And you can imagine how enormous their hearts have to be to pump blood all that distance up against gravity. And they've got absolutely enormous hearts. I can't remember how much it weighs now off the top of my head, but it's a good couple of kilograms, something like 20 kilograms or more. And it pushes the blood all the way up, and then they've got a system of valves to stop it from falling back. As soon as that heart relaxes and the blood pressure drops, they've got all kinds of valve systems to keep it up there. And that's why when you see a giraffe drinking, you'll never see them drink, and I've counted before, you'll never see them drink for more than about 30 seconds at a time. And that's because if they do keep their head in that unnatural position for too long, it will cause them to faint. And it's not unheard of for giraffe to drown when they go for a drink, and they slightly judge it a little bit badly. And that neck posture that they have, now we think of it, it makes us exhausted just thinking about holding your head up at that position. But there's actually no muscle contraction involved in the natural upright position of a giraffe's head, which unfortunately we still can't see very clearly because he is rather shy. But I know that if I move, he's going to move off this into the thick block just by watching his behavior. But that position that his head is in now, these giraffe have an enormous tendon, a really, really thick, really strong tendon that runs from the back of the skull down to the back of their neck. And that holds that head right up in place with the incredible tensile strength that tendons have. And the muscle work and the muscle contractions actually only come into play when they bend their heads forwards. So the muscles contract to bring that head forward. And I've found a dead giraffe before, and their heads are incredibly heavy, but two of us pulled it forward and down, and it shot right back up. That's how powerful that tendon is. So just an interesting note on the structure of giraffe. And that head of his weighs somewhere in the region of probably about 10 to 12 kilograms. And you can imagine, now combine that with that phenomenal muscle strength that they have in their necks, and then the momentum that they get by swinging it, and you can imagine the force involved in a fight between two male giraffe when they do what's known as necking, when they fight each other. So they swing their heads down and around and hit each other on the legs and on the sides. And the impact of those blows is phenomenal to watch. We're going to try and loop back onto the road. Maybe see if we can get a slightly better view of him from the other side. We are right into the sun, which has been fairly unavoidable for now. But now that he's relaxed a bit in our presence, and he's not focused on us at all, I'm going to try and back out and around. And let's see if maybe we can get a nice view of him, because he is a very, very attractive looking giraffe. He's in perfect condition, nice big male with beautiful coloration. So let's see if we can manage that without disturbing him. Looking for a nice way in, just to see if he can relax nicely. And unfortunately, I think in this situation, he is not going to relax. Seem very on edge. I think it might be time to say goodbye to our giraffe for now. He's very intently staring off into the distance. There's another vehicle, but they're leaving now, which is what he's looking at. And And if you were wondering what the giraffe was staring at, we have a nice surprise. It is staring directly at Steph. So we'll cut across and have a look at his view from that side, and then we'll be back again with you shortly.
To our point of view, giraffe, and bumped into Jamie, who was busy showing it to you. Same male giraffe. Although not looking at either of us at the moment, was just looking at Jamie now. And he's now staring off into the distance. Male giraffe have that tendency to do that. Now with him moving off, I think now that we've gate crashed your sighting, we're going to send you back through to Jamie so that she can carry on telling you about it, and we'll catch up with you in a bit, I'm sure.
And welcome back. Now it seems as though Steph and I have a propensity for finding the same animals at the odd times. It seems as though our giraffe has left us for now. He isn't going to stick around, so we're going to head off and see what else we can find. And I'm still trying to work out how the Birmingham boys managed their feat of either flying or teleporting into Torchwood, because I promise you I didn't see any tracks, and as far as I know none of the other guides did either. It's quite an achievement in my opinion. And Edward, I think you've put your finger on it. And for those of you who don't know, Torchwood, which is also the name of the green thorn or the Y thorn, it's a type of tree out here. But Torchwood was actually a spin-off series from the highly successful Doctor Who franchise. That is one of the longest running, to the best of my knowledge, one of the longest running sci-fi TV shows in the UK. And Edward thinks that there was a TARDIS somewhere that the lions have been using, and I think that is the only possible explanation. I think you've put your finger on it. And a TARDIS, I cannot remember what it stands for anymore off the top of my head, despite having lived 3 years in the UK and entrenching myself in that particular aspect of the culture. But the TARDIS is able to move through space and time and different dimensions. And I think the only explanation is that the Birmingham boys have a TARDIS somewhere. And Brian, the next one's for you. Jim thinks that maybe the giraffe wasn't looking at Steph at all, it was actually looking at a lion log that moved. And I think that's quite possible. And I don't know, maybe it was even a leopard termite mound. You just never know out here. Either way, that giraffe didn't want to be seen by either WildEarth crew. Oh, I don't think we're going to be living that one down for a while.
That's okay.
That's okay, it happens. Oh dear. They don't play fair. They use tortoises. They pretend to be logs. What I am going to do though is just hop onto the Game Drive channel and catch up with Lee. Lee for Jamie. Ooh, I think he might be out and about tracking. Either that or he heard about... Oh, there we go. There we go. He's here. There's some communication happening between Lee and Steph at the moment, and it seems as though Steph is going to be making his way to follow up on some leopard tracks that Lee has spotted. And for now, we're going to cut across to Steph. I'm going to continue on my own mission to look for my own leopard tracks, and we'll be back with you a little bit later.
I'm told that everyone's having a good go at Jamie today about her lion log or lion stump. Just to reassure everyone that it happens often out here where you have a leopard rock or a lion stump or a bough of a branch that looks, you convince yourself that it's absolutely that. It is quite common, but I understand the compulsion to tease Jamie is something that all of us share. She's easy to tease. And it's pretty much a boy-dominated camp, so you understand boys in the camp. Now, I've come this way because right outside our old residency, the DRC, there's a leopard track at the gate there. Myself and Lee have come into this area so that we can have a look and see if we can find any sign of this particular cat. Now I'm going to take a road that is not that commonly used, and I want to see if she actually crosses over this road over here. See what leopard we're dealing with. If I were to pick a leopard that hangs around the DRC and hangs around Djuma, I would have to say it's probably Karula. She was heading in this direction yesterday. Wasn't too far, not an unfeasible distance for her to move in a day. Especially considering that she's one of those cats that really enjoys walking during the middle of the day. Oh, okay, got her tracks here. That's that male's track. That's that male track that we picked up on Twin Dams, I think. It's not a female track at all. Let me see if I can show you. So we picked the right road for leopard. Let me see if I can show you the track that we're busy looking at. There's one there and then there's one there. And
The far one.
let me see if I'm going to get out of the car quickly and circle them for you so that you can see what I'm looking at. I'll circle the sequence. that's the sequence that's been circled. Sorry, let me get my shadow out of the way there for you. And here's another one. So there you've got left, right tracks of a male leopard. This is the right foot, this is the left foot. Walking here, there, here, somewhere here, but I've driven over it all the way up the road.
Look to be the same male that crossed out.
I think
this
so.
morning.
Yeah. To me, it looks like the same tracks of the male leopard that crossed out this morning that VM and I were tracking very early this morning. If I were to guess, I would say that these are his tracks. But what we might be lucky in doing is finding some female tracks on his tracks. Let's see if this female track comes out on this road. Just going to be calling his tracks in here just so that Lee doesn't waste his time. Lee, come in. Tracks of a male leopard here at the BB site. They head down towards the Cutline area, but did track a male leopard out at Twin Dams this morning. The track's quite fresh on that side. Probably the same one. I'm going to come around quarantine and come down here towards the dam. Alrighty. So, Lee has got the female tracks going right down to the Juma waterhole. Can you of that female? She doesn't look like she's on the tracks of this male at all either. And I would say that there's a very good chance that is at two dams. It's highly unlikely that you're going to have two big male leopard in the same area, tracks going in basically the same direction. But quite nice to know. Leopards right around where we're staying. At the moment, Lee's busy tracking the female leopard straight past the final control room. While myself and VM quickly go around to the dam side to go and see if we can give Lee a hand tracking those, or that leopard, that female leopard for us. Jamie's got some general game to show you, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot more pleasurable than staring at the back of my shiny bald head, and we'll catch up with an update in a while.
Welcome back, and while Steph tracks these mysterious leopards that have been apparently cruising around final control sometime last night or early this morning, we found some zebra, and they really are looking very beautiful in the morning light. Just having a look at their swishing tails, and I'm thinking looks to be a young bachelor herd. The one closest to us or in front is definitely a stallion. And we've seen quite a lot of young male zebras in this area. This could be part of the same group that we've been seeing. Big yawn, so tired. And another one. Now we mentioned a couple of drives ago, we were looking at the zebra behavior, and we mentioned how those ears can be an indicator of mood. And we've noticed that the two in the front have been putting their ears back quite a lot, but they don't, the rest of their body language doesn't indicate that they're stressed at all. And I think they're just rotating and flicking them from the flies. So you've got to be very careful in interpreting your signs, because it's not necessarily a sign of aggression. We've also got some impala, who are browsing just off to the left. I'm just wondering about these two zebra. I mentioned that their ears flat didn't necessarily indicate bad mood, but there are two stallions who are staying very, very close to each other. And I think there might be a little bit of friendly competition to them. So it's not just the ears back, but the yawning as well is a way of them exposing their quite vicious incisors as a warning. Let me shift back a little bit, because I think that these two are in the middle of a slight dominance confrontation, or establishing their dominance. Let's just stop here for now. I don't want to disturb them. They were a little bit skittish when we came in. And I'm not sure why most of the animals are fairly skittish this morning. It's not that windy. It might be my particular brand of petroleum-themed perfume that I decided to pour down my leg this morning by mistake. But everything's been a little bit skittish. I do think that one in the middle is a little bit of a troublemaker. There's some social grooming going on. And that's mutual between those two stallions, and affectionate for now. But grooming itself is also another indicator of group hierarchy and group bonds. This is the first time I've ever seen mutual grooming between two stallions in a bachelor group like this. They're showing us an interesting side of their bachelor herd dynamics. And these all look like fairly young bachelors, but they're not, I wouldn't call them sub-adults. They are mature adults, probably somewhere in the region of 3 years old, 3 to 4 years old, and right at about the age when they're going to start competing for herds of their own. There you can see back again, very, very closely following and grazing next to him. And they spend their late adolescence and early adulthood in these bachelor groups as a way of keeping safe, but they also use them as a practice sparring ground between individuals to prepare for the day when they do compete for their own herd. shift back a bit, keep them in view and not behind this clump of silver cluster leaves that are between us. We saw one of the young males yawn twice earlier, and it's something that we very much associate as a human reaction, and we see it with the lions as well. And it's often not just a yawn as we imagine it, but it's often a preceding action to, say, for example, with lions getting up, they often yawn and start to lick their paws. In these zebra, I think it was a little warning sign between two males. And Zai was wondering, seeing that zebra yawn, if they get hiccups at all. And that's interesting, because I know that cats and dogs do, so the lions will get hiccups. I know that my dog has often had hiccups. But I'm not sure about ruminants, because they've got those 4 stomachs. Oh, everybody's having a scratch. Every single zebra there is scratching in some way. That's very interesting that they all chose to start doing that together. But now, back to the hiccups question. I do wonder if it works in the same way with ruminants. Now, hiccups are the involuntary contraction of your diaphragm. But I wonder if that wouldn't cause problems if you've got 4 separate stomachs just below that as well. I don't know the answer to that, but I do think it's a fantastic question. And for those of you who have... Oh, but they're not ruminants. Hold on. I'm not thinking properly. Zebra are not ruminants. They're hindgut fermenters, so they've only got 1 stomach. So yes, they probably would get hiccups. As for the impala, I'm not too sure. I'm actually going to put that question out to some of the viewers who might have a little bit more experience with, say, horses than I do. And in your interactions with horses, have you ever seen them get hiccups? Because that is the closest animal example we're going to have in terms of a domestic situation. But really, really good question. I enjoyed that. Just have to think it through a little bit. I've certainly never seen an elephant with hiccups. Still scratching. Let's try and move back a little bit, catch them as they come round onto the road, which they are going to do. And if you do have any information for me about your pet horses or ponies that you'd like to share, please do so on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. I just stopped right here just because they are going to hopefully move across into the open, and I don't want to startle them any more than necessary. And as we talk about the wide variety of reactions that we've seen from these antelope, you can see perfectly right now that zebra's shoulder twitching, the skin shifting up and down like that in a very, very rapid motion. And that is an involuntary response to some kind of stimulation. It might be a tick crawling through the fur or a fly, and it's their way of just disrupting it without having to put too much thought or motion in. And you see him shaking his head, swishing his tail. He's obviously being plagued by flies at the moment, although I can't see any. But I certainly sympathize. And that rapid shoulder twitch is just an involuntary response to some kind of skin stimulation that's happening around that nervous system. I'm just going to take this opportunity, because I swear it's increased 10 degrees in the last 5 minutes, to remove my jersey, because I'm frying. It's definitely warmed up phenomenally. And the impala moving through as well. It's very common to see the various general game species like impala and zebra feeding together in this kind of environment. For the zebra and the impala, they're not competing for food. The impala are mostly browsing around here, although they will get some of the grass shoots as well. And for the zebra, they're utilizing a different part of the grass. They're actually capable of eating the drier top stems. And it just means that there's a couple more eyes to keep a watch out for predators and to be alert. So very, very common to see general game species feeding together. So we'll turn around. That's interesting. Hold on one moment. I'm going to just grab that, because we're still talking about the first signs of spring, and I've just found another one. Just do this very delicately. It's going to blow in the wind. Let's hold that down. Let me reattach my earpiece. So, we do have a snake skin. And the reason that I said it is a sign of spring is that up until now, most of the snakes have been relatively inactive. They do what's known as estivation. And that is a way of basically slowing their metabolism and dealing with a chilly winter. But now, as temperatures start to increase, we've got a lot more activity. I know for a fact that we've been seeing a couple more scorpions than usual around camp, and it seems as though the snakes are out and about as well. I'm just having a look now to try and figure out which snake this came from. It's a bit tricky. It's not a very wide snake. This snake would probably have been about, stay, this length, so probably from top to tail it's about 30 centimeters, so maybe just under 15 inches. Might have been a little bit longer because there's no head and there's no tip of the tail on the snake skin. And to describe what it feels like for those of you who've never felt a snake skin before, it's got quite a rough, dry, flaky texture to it, but it's still, you can see the sort of smooth scales and the imprints of the scales on it. My guess would be something in the region of a cobra or a mamba family. It's definitely not a puff adder skin. The puff adders have much, much larger scales around them. And it could be something completely harmless as well, but it's one of the more smooth scaled snakes. It's probably about this sort of width in terms of diameter. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time and you're not quite sure, you don't know snakes too well, this is not in any way a dead snake. This is somewhere out there is the perfect living example of this individual. And what they do is, as they grow, snakes shed their skin, and it starts off with them shedding very rapidly as they grow. So the young ones shed repeatedly over a couple of weeks. They grow very, very fast. And obviously that growth starts to slow down, although snakes do grow throughout their lives. And they continue to shed their skins. And it will get more and more common as the summer progresses and they've got more access to food, and their growth starts to peak again, the rate of their growth. But definitely one of those signs of spring, not one that we expected to see, but there are more snakes out and about, which is very exciting. I love snakes. I think they're fascinating. And interestingly, in my family, the one area that I am outdone in terms of passion and interest of the animals and the various things that we encounter out here, my brother is absolutely obsessed with snakes. I remember him at sort of 7 years old, learning all of the Latin names of all of the deadliest snakes. It was very sweet. I'm pretty sure he still knows them now at the age of 17. Probably doesn't bring them out in conversation as much as he used to. I don't think that's the best technique in terms of looking for girls. I'm still racking my brains, and Anna Marie, I know you wanted to know what snake it was, and as I mentioned, it could be something in the region of a cobra or a mamba, but it could also be one of the harmless snakes. All I know is that it was a snake about this long, about this big, and with smoothish scales, but beyond that I couldn't tell you. Now it appears as though my group of young stallions, zebra, have basically all but disappeared into quite a thick block, so we're going to lose visual of them for now. But I believe that Linda tells me that horses don't hiccup. YouTube video of zebras hiccuping. So apparently zebras differ from horses in that regard, and they do indeed get hiccups. I've learned something new today, and thank you for that. I'm going to be on the lookout now for all of the hiccuping animals I can find. I still wonder about the effect of hiccups on ruminants. I'm sure there must be some kind of... I've definitely never ever seen a cow hiccup that I know of, that I can think of. in terms of our snakeskin options as to who the culprit was for leaving their shedding skin lying around, Crystal wanted to know if we get sand burrowers or the different sand snakes that we might get in the Sabi sands. I just need to think for a moment. We get some extraordinarily beautiful snakes that have that sandy color. And what is the sand snake called? Oh, it's just the sand snake. We do get sand snakes out here. Unfortunately, I don't have my snake book with me at the moment, but they do have this incredible sandy color. And in terms of beautiful snakes, I would say that probably my favorite is the puff adder. I have seen some with the most incredible contrasting colors. They really are stunning creatures. We ponder the question of whether or not ruminants hiccup in the same way other animals do. Ed, who is on good form this morning, Ed says that picturing ruminants hiccuping, you can just imagine them firing pieces of cud out of their mouth, which I have to be honest is very, very close to the image that I had in my head. So definitely in agreement with you there. Now, as Brian and I continue our search for more deceptive looking logs and termite mounds, I'm sure that you're wondering how Steph is doing, and he is right outside final control. Apparently the leopards have been circling Jess and Tara, and I'm sure he has a little bit more to update you. So we'll cross back across to Steph and catch up with you a little bit later.
Right, so we've got leopard tracks all over this open area. Can you believe that right from the DRC right onto the fireside chat, and then from the fireside chat almost back the way she came? I'm going to try and see if I can show you these tracks. It's tiny tracks of a female leopard, and here they're going in two directions from what we can decide. There's a track right there next to the car track there, VM. I don't know if you can see it from your angle. Let's see if you can zoom in, coming onto the open area. No, it's really tough to see. But anyway, it gives us a direction to try. It looks like she's... these tracks come on, but there's other tracks there going off. And let's carry on with the drive, see what we can find. No.
Shinzele.
Okay. Alrighty. There's Lee and myself trying to track this down with a bunch of students. Let's go and see what we can see though. Carry on up. I think let's take the power lines, or let's take shortcut Gallego, which would be a good idea to see if she comes out on the side. It's difficult with leopard to try and see where they go and where they come from. Especially leopard that are hunting like she does. If it is Karula, it's literally just turning around in circles. There's a lot of impala tracks on the open area, right where our fireside chat place is. Just they were camping out there, and she's obviously come into the area to hunt those impala, which means that her tracks will be round and round And the trick there is not to try and follow those footsteps, footstep for footstep. It's virtually impossible. The trick would be to find out where she left that area and in which direction she went after that. And that would be the key. And that's what we're going to try and establish where we are now. Finding a 40-pound cat in this bush. Sometimes I just wonder how we bump into these things. If I was a leopard, here's the impala that were on the open area last night. They've moved off of the open area into the thickets. If only we could ask them what they saw last night. Instead, everything like pregnant at the moment. I just think they're the most pretty antelope. One of the most pretty antelope, at least. Yeah, let's carry on going. Looking for this animal. The wind has started to pick up in these gusts. And it's been quite a chilly wind. It's not a warm wind at all. Definitely warm enough for me having to have taken off my jacket. And I must say, it's quite a comfortable temperature. If it stays like this, it's going to be good. Excuse me, I'm just going to be on the radio. I'll go leave. No, none where I'm driving at the on Shortcut Gallagher. They could come out on that little track that goes to Gallagher's water point. I haven't gone down there. It was just Lee and I coordinating. Hold on.
Welcome back, and we do apologize for Steph's seeming signal issues. And you are back with me for the moment. Let's see what we can find on this side. Just checking along the western edge of where Steph and Lee are currently tracking those leopards, just to make sure that there haven't been any tracks coming out here. Spotted a breeding herd of zebra. Seem to be having a zebra themed last few moments of the sunrise safari, but I think they're going to disappear fairly quickly off into the block. Nice combination of a couple of females and the little one coming through. As always, that last one was the stallion, who walks behind his herd to make sure that he can protect them from the rear. His favorite female, his favorite mare, will be the one who leads the group. And bringing up the rear of our little breeding herd of zebra is an identity-confused wildebeest. And I've seen this particular male in this region before. I think he's established this as his territory. And unlike zebra, they don't collect a harem. The wildebeest will defend a territory and wait for the ladies to come to him. So he'll look for the best grazing opportunities and the best water access. And that is his particular reproductive strategy. And he's decided to stop right in the thickest part of this block. And I don't think we're going to get the best visual of him, so we'll move on for now. It looks as though he's going to head more into the drainage line. Here he goes. Off on his own breakfast mission. And I do enjoy spending time with wildebeest. They do look like they've got the raw end of the deal in terms of looks. They kind of look like they were put together by all the remaining parts when all the other antelope were handed out their looks. They've got a sort of scruffy look to them, but they are beautifully and perfectly adapted for the lifestyle that they live. And they are one of the fastest antelope out here. Those sloping backs with those very powerful shoulders make them look a little bit slinky, but it makes for incredible speed and stamina, and they can outrun most of the things that are in this area. Related to the fastest antelope that we have out here, which is the Sesame antelope, which I haven't seen around here. You do occasionally see them in Kruger, so it's a possibility that they could come through this to the side. I'm not sure if any of the WildEarth viewers have seen them yet, but I certainly haven't seen them, and I haven't seen any tracks for them. I don't think they find this area too favorable. But the fastest member of the family of the hartebeests, the sesames, and the wildebeest. Has picked up noticeably this morning. I wonder what it's bringing with it. Hopefully not another cold front. I'm quite happy with the temperatures at the moment. I'd prefer it if they stayed this way. And it's one thing that I have noticed about this area of the Sabi Sands. Where I worked before, I was not far away at all from the sun. Finish that moment, but we've just spotted some warthogs that are very, very nervous, which is why I haven't gone any closer. We're going to stay here for now. They were heading in our direction, so maybe Mommy might decide to come towards us, and it's always a much better approach to let the animals come to you rather than trying to approach them directly. They tend to be much more relaxed if you do follow that approach. And it's a young female with two young, probably around 6 months old little piglets. It's hard to tell at this distance. I can't see any tusks forming. They usually form them at about 6 to 7 months of age. You start to see them poking through. And I was talking about the wind gusting, and that's definitely one of the reasons why she is quite nervous and quite on alert. And I think she's going to move her little family off somewhere deeper into cover. And they've disappeared off into the drainage line. Now, I was talking a little bit about the wind before we spotted these little warthogs, and I was saying that I used to work on a reserve not far from here in a straight line, but it was much closer towards the Drakensberg Mountains, and there was not nearly as much wind as there is on the Sabi Sands. It is much more exposed out here, and I've definitely noticed a huge difference. Look, it is August, so it is the windy time of year, but it is responsible for a couple of these prey animals like the warthogs being a little bit more cautious about how they move through the area. I know that in particular Tara is very fond of warthogs, and I'm still aiming to get her an epic warthog sighting at some point, and of course for all of you as well. They are fascinating little creatures to watch, quite unique in their structure, and probably responsible, as I've mentioned before, probably responsible for maybe about 70% of my near-death or near heart attack experiences whilst walking. There's nothing that gets the adrenaline going quite like a warthog exploding out of its burrow in your vicinity to bring that little burst of adrenaline through and get those adrenal glands pumping. I would say maybe the other 10% would be francolins exploding out of the grass at my feet. Good morning. I'm just going to have a quick chat to the neighbors.
Trying to figure out where this female leopard came.
Okay.
Gone past our sign, over quarantine planes. Go and check it, you might find it.
Okay, down this way. Are you going that way or this way? I'm going to go this way.
Check up towards Zoe. Not quite sure what she's done. So.
Okay, I'll have a look down here for you, unless Steph is on his way this way.
There's tracks of bull up over this way, quite a few.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. Cheers, guys. Still coordinating a little bit in terms of this leopard search. Lee's been hot on the tracks all morning. I'm just double checking around this side. As I mentioned before, I'm only really checking out the outskirts as a possibility that this leopard has popped out here, just to help Steph and Lee out. Now, Steph has been hot on the heels and tracking around that area for more time than I have, and last time we tried to get an update from him, we were fairly rudely interrupted by gremlins. We're going to try once again to get an update from Steph.
Welcome back to the drive with myself this morning. It is going a little bit slow for me today, I must say. We are driving at snail's pace, following around tracks today that are not materializing in anything. This female leopard track that we've got, we can definitively say that it doesn't go down to the dam. It seems to cross back west from where we last had the tracks on the open area. Myself and Lee are both now going to look at parallel roads west of where we last had the tracks, and hopefully in the last couple of minutes of the show we can pull a rabbit out of the hat, so to speak. But it's been a bit of a challenge to decipher these tracks. A lot of traffic around quarantine, obviously with the lodges there and with us is there. There's a lot of cars moving around, and so quite difficult to gauge the direction. But nevertheless, it is the modus operandi for me. And something that I'm quite used to. Some good news is that Brent and Scott and James, all three of them are back today. Nikki, she comes back from leave today. I hear that everyone's well rested, barring Brent and James, who seem to have been burning the candle at both ends. And I'm sure that they're going to be excited to get back into the driving seat and to update everybody about where they've been and what they've been up to. Scott's been touring around the country with a friend of his from Kenya, as far as I know. And Brent and James are back of a motorbike filming some mountain bike race in Botswana or something. That's what they've been doing. So off on their adventures. I'm sure a lot of you are your favorite presenter to come back and tell you about what they've been up to. As for me, I'll be heading off air for a few days, but coming back to your screens again when we start up the walks in a couple of days. So you can expect from about the 21st. A walk thrown into the show from time to time. We absolutely look to be doing it on a mainstay basis, and I can't wait. It's going to be fun to get out on foot and out there again with you. We've got Lee in front of us. We're just going to be panning away for a second so that we don't film anyone who doesn't want to be filmed. And hello, how are you? We are live, so won't be staying too long. Anything come out on that ring road?
Just tracks of buffaloes coming into this block that haven't come out, so something maybe buffalo around here, but no sign of any wood.
Amazing, eh? Flying leopard.
Sorry, man.
One of the Juma greats, flying cats. Anyway, bye-bye. Thanks for the patience there, folks. Lee and I are trying to coordinate a tracking effort. He says there's no tracks coming out on this road, which is bizarre, man. Look, she's a small cat. The tracks are small. She's very light. Excuse me. I'm coming down with something. Leaving very little indentation on the soil. She literally could cover anywhere in front of us over here. You'd miss it. But that's what we do. Decipher these trails. So not much to talk about on our show today. We came out full of beans and full of fire to try and decipher where those Birmingham boys have gone. Got distracted by a male leopard that walked into the property last night and promptly walked out again. Got distracted again by trying to decipher whether or not the hyenas are up in the northeastern corner of the reserve, and I can say that I'm fairly certain that after this morning's tracking we've got them around Gallagher somewhere. So hopefully in the next couple of days we can actually start finding you where these dens are, where this hyena den is. And then we found out that the Birmingham boys had grown wings along with all the leopard in the property this morning and have flown away to other parts of the reserve. So that's what we can tell you. That's what we've been doing today. Jamie's had a bit more of a successful day in terms of finding things that are alive, at least anyway. And yeah, for myself and VM, we look forward to coming back, yourself on the walk and VM behind the camera over the next couple of days with the guys. I've had fun this morning. It's been chilly, it's been warming up now nicely, and it seems like the flies have managed to leave me alone for most of the morning, which is a good thing. We are going to be sending you back through to Jamie, who's going to be closing up the show. So from myself at least anyway, have a good day, have a good evening wherever you are on the planet, and we'll see you soon.
Welcome back, and it appears as though most of the animals on this reserve, or at least the bigger cats, have all decided to grow wings and fly away. I'm still checking on the outskirts just on the off chance that this female leopard has decided to come across in this direction. And I do wonder who on earth it could be. Could well be Karula. Could also be Shadow, who's been pushing more and more into this area, but I don't think so. I think Karula is the most likely option. And as I mentioned, this will probably be one of my last drives. I think it might be my last drive. I'm not too sure what's happening this afternoon. But as I said, as from tomorrow, I'm going on leave. And ex-Ranger, I agree with you. I think I'm definitely in need of a break. I've been covering for those slackers while they've been off having a party in Botswana and in Cape Town and Durban, wherever else they've been. And I am looking forward to seeing them all again, and I'm sure that we'll be leaving you in very capable hands, obviously. But yes, I will be heading across to visit a friend of mine who's looking after my doggy, my best friend Emma. So I'll be heading across to say hello to her and the dog, and then flying down to meet my family on the coast and just spend a little bit of time with my little brother, who is only in the country for the next couple of days. So really, really excited. I haven't seen him in months. So definitely excited to see him and the rest of the family. And we have had quite the eventful morning, and I think of course the highlight for most people was our lion log, and that deceived both Brian and myself, because he then spotted the log and then I was certain that I'd seen a tail swish. So that log is definitely out to full unsuspecting people driving down Inyala Road South. And Elizabeth, you were wondering what the gestation period of that lion log would be. Now let me think about that. It was probably a Tamboti tree, a fallen Tamboti tree, and the gestation period would probably be, the seed will germinate in the next few months as the rainy season comes, and quite possibly spend the next few years reaching sexual maturity, up to 10 or 20 years for that animal to reach its breeding peak. So yes, we've had quite the entertaining morning, from lion logs to hiccuping zebras and snakes that have shed their skin all over the place. It has been highly, highly entertaining, and definitely a good way for me to have spent probably my final drive with all of you. And just while I have the opportunity, I'd like to say thank you for making my first work cycle here at WildEarth absolutely fantastic, and I will be looking forward to being back on the Jigger or Wendy and entertaining you all once again in about 2 weeks. Big thank you to Brian for all of his work, and he's quickly got a surprise cameo of the thumb. And we will see you all for the sunset safari that will be with either Brent, James or Scott. Have a wonderful day wherever you are.